All right, welcome back to The Ringer, episode 3. Once again, I'm very excited to have you all on listening to the call. We've got yet another great guest. I think the first two have set the tone pretty well. A couple of hockey players who have had pretty good experiences so far in their career and had a lot of good insights to share. But now we're going to kind of switch it over to where I'm a little bit more comfortable with the baseball world. And none other than Eric Peterson, one of my very good friends, is going to kick us off. PD, at the beginning of every episode, I've been giving kind of 2 words to that kind of exemplify the guests we're having on. And for you, I think when I think of you, I think of number 1, humility. You're just a very humble guy. You know how to tell it like it is, and you're not gonna, sugarcoat anything really. And then the other thing is you're a go-getter. You're very routine oriented, and you've put in so much work to be where you're at, and I think that's just that's not a mistake where you're at right now. I think it's been a testament to all your hard work. So I'm looking forward to peeling back some more of those layers and understanding more about you. I think typically, everyone has a story and there's kind of a reason why people end up where they do. And so I'm kind of excited to hear your story, because you're obviously a D2 guy, undrafted free agent, and somehow you've sort of climbed your way up the ladder into AA. And, who knows what's next for you. I know there's a lot that's kind of up in the air riding on this season and what will happen in the future. But nonetheless, you've put yourself in a very good position for someone who had low odds of getting to that position. So obviously there's a lot of good things going on there, and I'm excited to dive into that. And it's no surprise, honestly, just knowing you from our time at Mankato. Obviously, I was just kind of a student manager / volunteer assistant coach, blah, blah, blah. And some of your best qualities from what I noticed was, like I said, you're very routine oriented. You were a great leader. You had a ton of swagger up at the plate, which was, the Nike boots and everything. And then growth. You had a lot of growth, I think, personally and as a baseball player from freshman year to redshirt senior year. So you're a deep thinker. You're a faithful man. You have lots of pride in what you do. And so this is going to be a fun one, I think, and we'll chop it up like old pals do. So
Love it.
our
Thanks for having me. I appreciate that intro. That was too much. You're a beast.
Oh gosh, no, it's like I said to the last guest, I don't have many friends who are, playing in professional sports, and so it was important to me to kind of start this thing off going for the big boys right away with the guys that are in the NHL, and then obviously you in AA and Brody on Thursday with the Blue Jays organization. So again, just to reiterate here, my biggest obstacle that I face in these interviews is getting cliche answers. That's the number one thing we want to avoid, unless you have a great reason for that cliche. And
Okay.
then my biggest goal is to get you to the point where you're just a little bit uncomfortable, but also we're going to have a lot of fun along the way. So I'm just looking to find at least one thing that I can take away and implement into my life and make myself better, and hopefully the listeners better. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started.
Okay.
Sound good?
Let's get after it.
Okay. So just a quick rundown of what this will kind of look like. We'll talk about what's going on in the quarantine. We'll get into your training habits and all that stuff. And then real quickly, we'll dive into the background, who kind of influenced you growing up and what that meant to you. And then we'll dive deep. We'll get into Mankato. We'll get into minor league ball, and we'll get into Australia a little bit. And if there's time at the end, we'll have some questions.
Cool.
All right, brother. So I think we're on like week 9 or 10 of the quarantine. What's that been like for you? What's kind of your day-to-day look like? What are your guilty pleasures? and how are you finding ways to get better? Just give me the tea.
Okay, so mine was kind of weird because I started off the quarantine in Arizona. So I don't know if it's like felt longer, but shorter in a sense. It's almost been like, it's weird because I traveled in between.
Mm,
And right when it started, my family happened to be in California. So I visited them for a week during the quarantine, like when it initially started in California. So that was kind of like the whole like scare or surprise, to the country. So I was in California and I was golfing and stuff, and it kind of felt like weird golfing, because you weren't supposed to do it, but you were, and
yeah.
I don't know. It was just super uneasy, and I mean, it was nice to get out there and golf, but it was weird. So that was for a week, and then I went back to Arizona, and one of my teammates is from Germany, and I ended up staying with him during the 10 days I was at spring training. And so I decided to go back to Arizona instead of driving, because I had my truck, instead of
Mm,
driving all the way back from California to Minnesota. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to stay in Arizona. And then they allowed me to stay in the hotel with him. So yeah, I was there for I think 2.5 more weeks. And we were kind of like finding people's houses to work out at and just doing makeshift workouts. Um, and then we were hitting on this big grass field just off of a tee and stuff, and we were throwing. So as far as baseball went down there, it was pretty good for the beginning, but like again, like I said, like it was still kind of in that surprise phase and the uncertainty. And so we were just, it was almost kind of aimless,
mm-hmm,
although we were getting our, routine in every day, like it was still kind of aimless, and there was just this sense of like what's happening,
mm-hmm.
just like everybody else in the world was probably feeling. Um, yeah, and then Marcus and I ended up coming back up and staying with my parents because he couldn't go back to Germany. So it's been a wild run for like this quarantine thing, because it's been an interesting quarantine for me. Um, but since I got back home, I've had a good routine of like getting up and going on walks in Lebanon Hills here in
Oh yeah,
town. Yeah, just to kind of get my quiet time and just get away from it all. And
sure.
that's been super nice to start off the day with, like, just getting like into nature, because I love nature. So that's been kind of like my morning routine from the beginning, and then we're getting our workouts in and hitting when we can, and doing all that good stuff. Trying to stay consistent, just basically like an off-season program. And then yeah, so me and Marcus have been getting after it, and he's getting ready to, get out there and do big things. He was in Double A with me last year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, as far as guilty pleasures, I've had a pint of um, Haagen-Dazs almond chocolate almond ice cream. I've eaten the full pint probably like 6 or 7 times in one
Oh,
sitting.
no. That is some pleasure for you right
Oh,
there.
it's so
Man,
good.
dang.
It's the best ice cream out there. If you haven't had it, you
I've
need to
never
have
had
it.
Haagen-Dazs. I'll have to get on that train.
It's the best.
So, have you heard any word from the organization on next steps, or are you just in limbo?
No. I mean, they keep, like, we have these weekly like webinars, kind of like what we're doing with this,
Sure.
and they just kind of inform us on. They're honestly just trying to keep our minds in the game, and all we're doing is like analyzing pitcher breakdowns and
Mm,
doing that kind of stuff. And they're obviously checking in to see how we're working out and what do we got, back home, that kind of stuff. So it's getting pretty boring, and
yeah.
they haven't told us anything.
Long story short,
Yeah.
um, I mean, do you find value in those pitcher breakdowns, or like what is that like?
Yeah, actually, I mean, um, we so there's like this website that we get where we can
Mhm.
break down or you can see video and you can see like stats and metrics on every single pitch thrown in minor league baseball up to big league baseball. So, and the system is like incredible. Think about like an Excel spreadsheet, in the baseball world. Like, you know how you can do a bunch of certain like formulas and type. Yeah, it's basically that in the baseball world. So like learning to do that has been like super cool, like
Hmm.
super interesting. And I knew enough where I could like look at swings and stuff, but like
Yeah.
we're learning how to put like the metrics of a fastball in so that you can see, if you haven't seen a pitcher yet, you can put his fastball metrics that he has on this like the pregame scouting report, and you can like put those same stats or metrics whatever into the system to see if you faced a similar pitcher to him.
No way.
Yeah, so it's kind of like it gives you an idea of, okay, I remember what that guy was like, so I can maybe go up there with the same type of mindset.
That's insane.
Yeah, so
Like I remember you showing me that system with Cole. It was you, me, and Cole.
yeah,
We kind of looked at that stuff, but that sounds like you guys are taking that even a step further now.
yeah. I mean,
Wow.
I think it's getting to the point where um like, you know, the whole analytic thing, you know, back when Moneyball started, it was very front office esque, I guess. And now it's kind of like trickling down to where like, you know, they want to implement it with the players and the players so they can use it versus just using it as a scouting tool. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. That's kind of the natural progression, right? I mean,
Yeah, and it's happened, you know, slowly over the past 3 years. And I'd say when I jumped into it, it was like just starting to get into the thick of it. So ever since I've been in pro ball, it's been all technology.
and the Dodgers are kind of right on the forefront of that.
Right. Yeah.
Crazy. Dang, dude. Well, I'm uh I'm kind of curious to see what'll happen, but I think we've talked ad nauseum about the quarantine in pretty much every conversation we've had for the last 2 months. So
Right.
let's go ahead and kind of move away from that. And we might get into the analytics stuff again at some point here, but um, let's kind of take a step back and look at baby Eric Peterson and his path to the present. I think it's super important to know where you've been because that can heavily inform where you go next. Um, so I kind of want to get a sense of what your path looked like and how it made you into the player you are today. So just with your youth, I have a few things I want to touch on. Number one, when did you realize that you were going to be like really good? You know what I mean? And you obviously that's like
Like in baseball or what?
yeah, baseball.
Honestly, I don't know. I guess the stupid answer would be like I never really like knew I was bad, I guess, because I was always like on the best teams.
Hmm.
But ever since I was a kid, I always had a baseball bat and a glove in my hand. Like my mom, I remember this pink glove that I got for like my second or third birthday,
Hmm.
and I always wanted to be Benny the Jet Rodriguez. So,
And you
like,
ended up with the Dodgers, so
yeah, I know exactly. So I don't know. It was just something that I always like. I always had a knack for hitting,
hmm
just swinging a stick at a ball. You know, swinging a stick at a rock. It's just something I always like to
yeah.
do.
So I'm guessing then it was probably I've heard your story a little bit, but it was probably more so in your years at MSU when you're like, okay, I could maybe play some pro ball. Like,
Right.
because I
Yeah.
think growing up, I think we all are like, oh, I want to play in the big leagues. But
Yeah.
when did it become like a viable option for you? Oh, I might play pro ball.
Right. Yeah, I have told you the story before. Um, so before senior year, I had hit pretty good. Like I hit 350 the year before. So junior year, I hit 350. I think the year
At
before,
MSU.
yeah, MSU. The year before that, I hit like 340, and then the year before, I hit like 310. So I was like progressively like getting better, but I wasn't hitting for like much power. And I mean, 350 is like pretty good, but in D2 ball, like if you really want to get like looked at, you have to hit close to 400
Hmm.
with some power. So like after my junior year, I was playing in the Northwoods League, and I sucked. I was terrible. Like the first 3 weeks, I was on like a temp contract,
Hmm.
and I was terrible. So once that temporary contract ended, um, I was just like upset. And it was at that point when I had always wanted to like do like a leg kick in my swing, because
Mhm.
I just at the time I didn't know much about the swing, but I just knew that like people that had leg kicks like were hitting home runs and stuff. So I'd always mess around with it in BP and stuff. And it would generate a little bit more power. So I kind of took that into I kind of brought it into action with my coach from my youth, who I still hit with, Greg Lindsay, and he was kind of our about 10 to maybe 9 to 12-year-old coach, and we had a pretty dominant team, and he was a very intense coach. And so I still hit with him. He's like a mentor to me. And so I was kind of bringing this up to him. I was like, man, I wanna do a leg kick. I just did terrible in this Northwoods league, and this is good competition. And it was scary for me because I wanted to take this risk, because I had just I could have easily stayed safe and hit 350 again.
Mhm.
But I wanted to risk it and maybe see if I could up my game a little bit more. And so I was like kind of toying around with, just messing around in conversation with him, saying, I want to do this, want to do that. And then I did it a few times just like in front of him without just like a dry swing type thing. And he's like, no, 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 you're doing it wrong. He said, make sure you sink into that hip.
Mhm.
So, and then he was like kind of feeling it. He's like, no, not that, like this. So he was like getting like on the back of my hip and like, get into this, get into that. So I was like, okay. And the first few swings was like bad. And he's like, get into that hip. So then I kind of like remember the moment, and it was like, boom, okay. And he's like, get into that hip. I was like, boom. And then it was the third one where I was like, all right, I'm just going to let it go, get into that hip and just crank it. And it was like crack. And it was like dead center, probably a home run. It was in the cage, so you can't tell. And we both stopped and looked at each other. And I said to him, I was like, that swing is going to get me to pro ball, because it was just different.
Mhm.
And then, but it was still scary for me because I had to implement that in the game now. So it took some time. And then I ended up going into the end of the Northwood season. So I got another temporary contract and I didn't do well with it. So I almost scrapped it. But then I ended up calling up PJ, our coach at MSU, and I was like, hey, PJ, I was like all scared. I was like, oh, maybe he's not going to let me do this. I don't know why I was thinking that. I was just a little kid in me. Um, but then I was like, yeah, I want to do this leg kick, and I've been practicing. And he's just like, do it. And then I went into the fall with this leg kick, and it was good. I was pumping it, and then ended up working out senior year.
I remember your senior year, you taking BP was one of the funnest thing to watch that I've ever been a part of, as a part of the baseball world. It was either a double or a home run. It felt like every swing,
Really?
and you would watch it and you'd be like, that's got to be what a pro batting practice looks like,
Huh.
So you could kind of see that happen. And I don't
Perfect.
remember your junior year a lot,
Right.
but I do know that senior year was like,
Yeah.
man, this guy can freaking hit. So,
Yeah. It was fun.
um, looking back, one more question with the youth side of things. What would you say is the biggest factor in shaping who you are today? Uh, would you say it was a particular way that you were raised, or was it a significant event in your life that shaped you? Um, what is that biggest factor for you that's kind of made you who you are today?
Okay. Well, I guess I'll give you like from the beginning, like youth type thing. So as a kid, I just remember, I mean, because you hear stories from your parents and stuff like that, and your brothers. I had two brothers, so we were always competitive, and I always liked to play games. So I was always competitive, and but I was also like I was super quiet and like observant.
Mm.
So I would like stare at people sometimes, and if you were to like look at me as a kid, like it would get you in trouble as a kid, because like let's say somebody's walking on the street and their brother who's in a wheelchair is walking with them, I would just like stare at the kid in the wheelchair, And it wasn't because like there's
Yeah.
something wrong with him, but I was just like intrigued with like the way he is. I was like, man, I wonder like why he's in a wheelchair.
Hmm.
So I would always like want to get down to the core of things always. And I think that's kind of like
That is so you.
yeah. And I remember that as a kid, I
Yeah.
would always just like stare at people, and especially like as a kid, like when you're like a cute girl, oof, that was tough to keep the eyes off of because you wanted to know even more about them.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's always kind of stuck with me, I think. I still like want to get to the core of things. I think that's why I've learned so much about the game of baseball and all that good stuff. But yeah, as far as like outside of life and stuff, you and me were in a Bible study at
Mm.
Mankato, and that kind of switched my perspective on a lot of things, and it kind of actually felt, as we were hanging out with each other and talking to faith, it actually felt more at home than I ever thought it would. Because I mean, I don't have all the answers. I mean, you know that,
Mm-hmm.
but I like to search for them, and knowing that people out there are also doing the same thing was cool.
Amen. I think what you're getting at too is like us searching for stuff like that is proof that we know we don't have it all figured out. I think that's
Right,
probably a misconception about the faith, and we won't get too much into that.
right,
We don't want to sound preachy or anything like that because we don't have it all figured out. But
right.
I know it's a big part of who you are. Have you? Just your answer reminded me of a movie I saw the other day, though. Have you seen The Perks of Being a Wallflower?
No,
Oh, you got to watch that movie. Uh,
really?
yeah, it's super good, and it's a sad movie, but um,
Maybe I'll watch it
it
after this.
it's a little bit like your story, but yours hasn't had necessarily the same sad twist to it. But anyhow, uh, let's move forward. I'm again fearing that we're just going to go way longer than I want to,
Okay.
uh, but we'll have fun either way. So, um, moving on to your time at MSU, uh, you were there for 5 years, and obviously there was a ton of growth from. And I hear all about it. I used to hear about you coming in as a freshman, small little guy, and then you left a man. Like you were well put together. Um, and that's the physical side of things, but then there's the non-physical side. So take me through just the growth that you had from your time at MSU from beginning to end. And you don't have to go too in depth, like I said,
Right.
because we're gonna
Yeah.
get into things. But
Um. Yeah. I mean, I came in like 165, little skinny tyke, and I mean, I had been working out in high school, but I also played hockey, so I didn't really put on the weight that you can put on, without skating every day.
mhm.
So I think that having that hockey in me helped, with my baseball, but I wasn't big. And basically that freshman year, Moggers, our coach, head coach, gave me the kind of the ultimatum, like, hey, you can either play this year and you'll maybe get your chance and fight for a spot, but look who we have at second base. We got Shefty at second base. So it might
All
be a good
American,
option. What's that?
all American, right? Or pretty close.
Something like that. Yeah, he was
He was good.
really good. Yeah, and he's like, or you can redshirt with the rest of the guys and you know put some put some weight on, get in the gym, refine your skills, and come back next year and start right away.
Hmm.
And I was kind of mad. I was kind of pissed off because I was like, I want to play. I had that, I just have that competitor in me. But I decided to redshirt, kind of like not by myself, but he guided me into it.
Hmm.
And so I redshirted and I put on 20 pounds that year. So, a lot of factors were in on that one. I ate a lot and was hanging out with the guys. And yeah, and I don't know, it was just fun like being a freshman. And yeah, I guess throughout the years, and I kind of stayed around that 180, 185 and just continued to work out and continue to grind. And there's some, ups and downs throughout the 5 years I was there. I had a girlfriend, then I had a breakup, and that kind of took a toll on me, and had to stick with that, and had to get through that, which kind of led me to the mental side of the game of baseball, because I was like, well, I'm battling this thing outside of baseball, and ends up helping me out in baseball. Yeah, so then I got to senior year, and after that I got a chance.
So that redshirt freshman year, would you say, because I'm thinking this is a Zoom that a lot of high school kids would like to watch. Would you say that redshirt year did you a lot of good in the long run, or
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, 100%. If I didn't have that redshirt year, I wouldn't be here right now.
Yeah, I mean, because you're looking at the only reason, or I shouldn't say the only reason, but the main reason why you are where you are is because of that fifth year, right? It's because you changed your swing and had another year of development and maturity as a player.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Absolutely.
and that's exactly it. If you have, whatever your platform is at the time for baseball, the more you stay in it, the more you're going to get better and develop. And at the time, my platform was the perfect place for me to develop. If I were in pro ball at that time, I would be done 4 years ago, because I wouldn't have been able to keep up with that competition. And same thing, I guess, if I had a freshman year right away, I don't know how I would up throughout that whole season. You there? Oh, cut out. I'd like to think I would have, but then also I wouldn't have had that senior year where I made that decision and really upped my game.
For sure.
So
Yeah, it's I just think about the what it actually takes to be a professional baseball player. And along with that, there's a lot of kids that are super talented. Like, there's so many kids getting drafted out of high school that are super good. But if you're not one of those guys, then you've got to do everything in your power. You got to have a lot of things go right in order for you to end up, where you're at now. Just from a physicality standpoint, a numbers standpoint, and a makeup standpoint, you kind of, your numbers from a tool standpoint aren't necessarily top of, you're not an 80 grade anything necessarily, but you do a lot of things extremely well. And it wasn't necessarily that way when you were younger, right?
right.
Yeah.
So
But
you have to put in that work. You're right.
yeah. But one thing that you did always have at Mankato, this was the other thing I wanted to talk about, was that swagger. You're honestly notorious for having that swagger at the plate, and Nike Boots was your walk-up song. All the girls knew when Eric Peterson was coming up to
All the
bat.
girls.
Tell me about what that felt like for you, just to have that swagger at the plate. Was it intentional, or is that just all you, baby?
Or is that just all you, baby? I have no idea, dude. It kind of just like developed. Like, obviously I liked the song Nike Boots, and that was my guy growing up, and I had that walk up since I was a sophomore, so I stuck with it. So me and the song Nike Boots had a close bond. So if I was walking up to the plate, I knew Nike Boots had my back. So, when I was walking up there, I'd do a nice little strut because my guy was playing in the background. And I made sure that I walked it out slow and nice and easy so I could, get to, the best part of the song. And yeah, I don't know. I always did a routine up there, and I spit on my gloves, clap my hands. My grandpa always loved that. So I think it was like a process that just kind of happened.
Mm-hmm. And we'll dive into that process in probably about 5-10 minutes here. But just lastly, I want to talk about where you're at right now. Just your path to the present. What's been kind of the biggest adjustment from college to pro ball? What is obviously there's a lot more talent and the schedule is more grueling, but what is really the biggest adjustment for you?
Ooh. So I played Northwoods ball, so like the travel and stuff I was used to that.
Hmm.
Host families used to that. Um, I think the biggest thing for me was not playing all the time.
Mm.
So like personally, that was my big adjustment because even when I was in low A that first full season, actually even the season before when I was in rookie ball, short season, and I was playing better than a lot of these guys, and I wasn't playing as much, it didn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
I was like, this doesn't make sense. That's not how it should work. Like I should be playing, and I wasn't going up and complaining about it. Like I was putting my head down and working, and
Hmm.
it was kind of like creeping in the back of my mind, like, man, dude, what else do I got to do to keep playing? And then I started realizing it was reoccurring, and then I realized, okay, that's when the business actually does come in. And people always talk about the business of baseball, blah 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 blah, but it's so true. Like it's super true, and especially in my situation because they literally didn't have a spot for me,
Hmm.
and I got lucky because somebody got hurt, and I ended up filling the spot better than they thought. And basically, when I also got signed, they signed me as a guy to basically fill a bench so that if somebody got hurt, the game could keep going. I wasn't actually given a chance,
Yeah.
but cause I was playing once every 4 games in Arizona, and I actually didn't do that well down there. And then somebody got hurt up in short season, and then it was like in front of fans and that stuff, so it felt like real baseball. And then I did well, and it was kind of like that the next year too,
Hmm.
where I got called up because someone got hurt, did well, got sent down after hitting 516 at bats, which is not that much, but still.
Hmm.
And then went back down to extended spring training where nobody wants to be. I had to hit my way out of that again. Then I did the same thing, and then I went on a slump after hitting about 300 up in low A, and then I went on a slump, like a 1 for 26 slump that brought me down to like 267, and then they called me up to double A from low A. So that was like a weird. I was like, why am I getting called up to double A right now? I just went on a slump, and it's double A. And I didn't think I was going to play. I was like, okay, well, this is kind of a joke. I'll just sit on the bench just like I did the rest of the time. And I ended up getting like 17 at bats and kind of killing it up there just for, 17 at bats.
Hmm.
But I remember like saying to myself, like, this is your chance. Like, this is, the better chance that you're going to get. Some of those guys aren't going to get this chance, although they're going to have like a stronger chance.
Hmm.
Like, this is your little chance that's a little bit better than the rest of the guys. So I remember like really honing in and kind of blocking a lot of things out and just trying to focus on the game, and it was super cool. And then yeah, and ever since then I've been battling just being able to play. So that's been the hardest thing, and like you said, I'm a routine guy, and I've had to kind of adjust to not relying on a routine and kind of getting used to the spontaneity. That's a word, right?
Oh yeah, that's a good word.
Um yeah, because I've come to notice because of it, it's actually helped me out. Like some routines are not like just because it's a routine doesn't mean it's good.
Mm.
And sometimes not having a routine that you're attached to is even better because then you can adjust, you know. So yeah.
I mean, at the core of a routine is it's preparation to get yourself best prepared to perform, right?
Right.
And people can have routines, but if it doesn't get you prepared to perform your best, then it's what are you doing? It's not effective, So I hear what you're saying there,
Yeah.
and just kind of retouching on the whole biggest adjustment in pro ball thing. Chris Goodman, who spent some time with the Miami Marlins, he's my roommate at Mankato, and when he was the GA for the baseball team and in the sports psych program with me, he kind of had a very similar situation where he was killing it and he just wasn't getting his opportunities. And he explained it to me really well. And I don't know if you've ever heard it this way. I'm sure you have, but it's basically like if you're a first round draft pick, you have to think of yourself like a Ferrari. And if you're an undrafted free agent or a late round guy, you're basically Toyota, like a 98 Toyota. And so if I'm the owner of both of those cars, which one am I going to give the oil change to more regularly? Am I going to give the oil change to the Ferrari or to the 98 Toyota? Right. And does that mean it's fair necessarily? No, it definitely sucks. But at the end of the day, like you said, it is a business, and we could talk ad nauseum at how sucky that is. And we could go down the rabbit hole of minor league players getting paid or a lack thereof. We could talk about how much money they're making right now, what they'll be making off the TV deals,
Right.
and we could get into all that mess, and we could probably get pretty frustrated, and that would be fun. But
Right.
it is unfortunate. But what's really cool is you've done a phenomenal job of taking your opportunities and absolutely running with them. It's been super fun to see. I watch from afar, and every time I check, it seems like you're on some sort of hitting streak, or you just got called up and you went 3 for 3 in your first game, or like just something like that. And it's been really fun. And I know it hasn't been all that easy for you the whole time. I know you've had to develop a lot uh, from a personal standpoint, interpersonal communications with your teammates and all that stuff. Um, and I'd like to dive into that part of it too, because you obviously have a lot to share, not only as a baseball player, but as a human. So I think now is a really good time to kind of dive deep and look at you as a person, turn up the heat on you a little bit, have some fun here, and hopefully give these guys some things to take away. So first off, I want you to tell us about yourself as a player. Okay. So what is it that you do well? What's your primary position? What's your favorite part of your game?
Yeah. So I've always liked to hit. That's kind of something that I've always, put pride into, doing extra work hitting and, understanding more about other people's swings so I can implement it, that type of stuff. Because, I mean, that is most of the game. If you don't hit, you don't play baseball
Mm-hmm.
unless you're extremely good at, shortstop. And, basically that's about it. Yeah, so I take pride in my hitting. And, growing up, I was more so, the average hitter, the guy that would get on base and, be that leadoff guy type of thing. And that's kind of evolved over time because, I know what the game of baseball needs now. So I've tried to, get more into the power type thing as I've been on the bench. But I'd say my backbone is putting the bat on the ball and having a tough at bat. That's kind of the player that I see myself as is a guy like when he gets in the box, like I'm not gonna go up there without any effort. I'm gonna go up there trying to win. And that starts with going in the box and looking at the pitcher in the eyes. Understanding that it's a battle. Because that even if I'm not feeling it, like looking at him in the eyes, that it's just that like, that wolf pack type mentality, like that's gonna spark something up. And whether it's, that fear inside of you, it's gonna get you ready in some type of way. And I'd rather do that. I'd rather go out, looking at him in the eyes than, looking at my feet. So that's kind of like my mentality in the box. As far as in the field, I've kind of seen, I guess, an opening as like a utility guy because I've been able to play basically every position in pro ball except for catcher, which I'm still kind of catching bullpens a little bit here and there. So yeah, and I think, if I get my shot up at the top, that'll be my ticket, to kind of just be that, fifth infielder, fourth outfielder type guy.
Mm-hmm. Whatever you got to do.
Yep.
Cool. So now let's kind of get into the training side of things. Um, Obviously, you don't make it very far on just talent alone. You know, a lot of professionals are professionals for a reason. They have very strict systems and habits that they have to make sure they're doing every day or every week or every month. So you know, when we talk about like the Diamond Series, basically we talk about systems. So
Yep.
what are your systems within your training regimen and within your personal life that you feel like you have to do in order for you to be on and be ticking the way that you want to?
Right. Yeah, it starts off with, being able to separate the game of baseball, with the rest of, life. And if I get too sucked into that, I kind of try to gauge back a little bit. I mean, because it is something that I do, in the summer every single day,
Hmm.
and I have to spend time doing it. Um, but it's easy to get sucked into it and to not see what else is out there. So for me, in the morning, usually I try to, and sometimes it's really tough, is to get some quiet time. And for me, that's in prayer and like meditation, type prayer type stuff. And I mean, it's like it can be anywhere from like 5 minutes if I'm not feeling it to an hour sometimes, depending on my situation. And that's something that I've developed ever since like we got in that Bible study, and it's helped me out quite a bit. But it's been a battle, because it's not the norm.
Hmm.
And it's tough because I know that a lot of people don't have the same experience that I have. So sometimes, my, insecure self gets, it comes and it kind of eats at me sometimes about that. Like, oh, people are going to think you're weak doing this, Eric. It's like, well, I've gotten to the point now where it is what I do and it is who I am. So that's kind of like what I do in the mornings. Um, yeah, as far as like my meals and like eating and stuff, I'd say I keep a 70-30 healthy diet. Like I eat 70% healthy food and 30% whatever. And I don't know, it's worked out for me. My metabolism's pretty good. So I don't really have to worry about, the weight thing like too much. Um yeah, and then workouts, try to stay consistent with my workouts and then prepping for the game, stuff like that.
Is there any foods that you make sure you avoid or make sure that you like from a superfood standpoint, like something that you found that makes you feel really good?
Um I eat a lot of blueberries.
Hmm.
Blueberries are that's kind of my breakfast. I'll eat a like an egg sandwich type thing, and then I'll always have my blueberries. And
They're
those things
superfood.
fire me up.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
And then nothing that you're really making sure you avoid necessarily.
Mm, no, just too much of anything.
Yeah, that's
Like if I have like a cup of coffee, I'll make sure to that's my cream and sugar for the day.
mhm,
And if I have another one, I'll be pretty mad at myself about it. Depending on the situation, but
sure. Just moderation is kind of
yep,
your
yep,
go-to principle.
yep.
Cool. And then tell us a little bit about sleep. Are you feeling pretty good about your sleep schedule? Are you pretty strict with it, or are you kind of a night owl? Like what's that like for you?
I try to get to bed early so that I can get up early because that's like my morning. My mornings is where I try to like, get that head start on the day, get that quietness. And then if I'm on the road, I try to like find a diner or something. Like that's been the cool thing about the minor league life is seeing all these small towns
Mm,
and going to all the diners and stuff and just taking a walk in their town. It's sick.
yeah.
So I use that and that's to me like I've been able to do that ever since the 3 years I've been in it. Like I've made that a conscious decision to kind of explore the cities and stuff. And I feel like that's something that a lot of the guys are missing out on. In minor league baseball, it's like you guys we have a platform that's allowing us to travel right now to these like small countries in America. You know, if you want to get to know your country, we're doing it probably the best way you can do it. You know?
You absolutely right. In my opinion, I think about just the story that you can come away with from a couple years in minor league baseball, the places you get to see, the people you'd get to meet,
Hmm.
and on top of that, play some really good baseball.
Yeah, it's extremely fun.
I'm jealous from that standpoint. I think I'd be a big diner guy myself.
Yeah, and there's been some cool stories because I like to crack conversations with random people.
Yeah, dude. Have you like? Do you have any that you want to share?
Yeah, so I was in this city. I forget what the city's name is, but it's right across from Clinton, Iowa, in Illinois. And it's basically Farmville, USA. And the population's like under 1,000. And it's just one street of houses and then like a diner, like a Catholic church, and then like a baseball field and a walking path. And I decided to hit all three of them. So I ended up coming back. I think it was like a Friday or something. I ended up going to a mass, like an early morning mass, and then um talk to the priest afterwards. And I actually ended up like inviting him to the game, and it got rained out. Long story short, that didn't happen. Um, but he was a big baseball fan. And on the way back, I hit up this diner, and this old guy, he was a farm, like an old farmer guy, probably 65, had a nice gut. You know, he was sitting at the booth, the front booth bar type thing at those diners,
Yeah,
you know, with the round stools. So I
yeah.
decided to plop myself, you know, a couple seats away from him. And he ended up talking on his phone and he was FaceTiming someone like this whole time. But he was just like super like outgoing, and he was kind of talking to the waitress at the same time. And I was obviously on the side chiming in. I'm this new guy, you know, trying to be a local, but I'm far from it. And I noticed that this waitress has like an accent, and she's a woman that is probably about 50, you know, 50ish, and she had a daughter that was working there too. And this guy ends up like talking to me, hey, what are you doing here? I want to say hi to my girlfriend. She lives in Singapore. So this guy in middle of nowhere America is talking to his girlfriend that lives in Singapore, and I ended up getting like his whole story, and we just got in this conversation. And then this waitress is like, oh, Dale, say his name's Dale. He's like, oh, Dale, how is blah blah blah. So she knew who this guy was and his girlfriend. And I'm like, how did you get here? You have this accent. She's like, oh, I moved here from Italy, like, you know, 20 years ago. And I was just like, how did I just get thrown into this thing? Like, this guy's basically me, like, allowing me into his life. She
Yeah,
knows everything about his life. She's not from here. I'm not from here. And it was just like, I don't know. It was such a small moment, but I remember it like it was the back of my hand.
that's crazy. Wow, it's crazy the stories that can come from a question about sleep.
Yeah, isn't that funny?
Yeah, that's awesome. Um, so I guess the next part of the whole training thing, you know, obviously Mind Strong is big on the breathing stuff. Um, do you find that you are implementing that into your daily routine? Is it a pre-game routine or a in-game thing? What have you kind of taken from a breathing standpoint and made, you know, a part of your system?
Yeah, so ever since the Mankato days, Dave Williams, who also kind of helped, you know, Harvey
Hmm.
back in the day, he always was implementing like, you know, breathing type stuff along with, you know, the mental cues and stuff that you can bring into the game. So ever since then, I've kind of been toying with it, and
Hmm.
you know, obviously being around Harvey, I've learned a lot more because that guy is a genius in that aspect.
Hmm.
Um, so I think I've kind of taken a little bit of everything from the phases, and I've kind of just made it my own, so that when I go up to, you know, when I go up to bat or I'm in the field, I can kind of use those cues, you know, use my breath and the words, that I like to get myself locked in. It's almost like a combination and a culmination of what's come about over the years. As far as like practicing it, like I just try to stay calm, and usually, a couple breaths, with the focus gets me there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do too much of the intense breathing stuff that
Mm-hmm.
we were doing anymore. It seemed to, I don't know, for me, it seemed like it was getting too much and it was almost getting in the way for me. Um, I'm sure, like, because I mean, everybody's different, and
Mm-hmm.
someone could use it. If someone didn't have any idea what it was, it could be their ticket. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I had a background before doing the heavy stuff with Harvey, so I've kind of like found a good balance. So, yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's all about what's effective. Speaking
Right.
of Dave Williams, that's my favorite thing that I've ever peeled away from Dave Williams is the word effective.
Right.
You know, if your thoughts are not effective, then just get rid of them. And at the and what you have to do is you just ask yourself, is that effective? And if it's not effective, then don't use it.
Right.
And so it is a tool, and if it's an effective tool for you, use it. If it's not, don't.
Right.
Cool. Um, which kind of brings me to the routines aspect. Take me through kind of a game day routine, or I guess we kind of already talked about your game day routine a little bit. You start with the quiet time, and
Yep.
then where does it go from after that? You have your quiet time, and then what's the rest of the pregame routine look like?
Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't like to think of it as like a pregame routine, during the day at the hotel. It's like that's when I try to, call my family and call my friends and just kind of keep up, and
Hmm.
because I'm away a lot. So keeping up with people is a lot more difficult than I imagined. So I try to do that. Of course, I'll get my relaxation in, like I'll just watch YouTube or something. I like to watch YouTube. Um,
Hmm.
it's my go-to. Stupid
Kyle
videos.
videos.
Kyle videos, yeah. Kyle videos are my thing. Um, but like getting to the field, I like to get to the field. I used to like to be the first guy there all the time because I wanted to make that like a thing.
Hmm.
I want to be the first guy there. I wanted to do everything. But being on the bench this year, kind of made me realize like you just got to get your work in. You got to know yourself, and you got to be consistent in whatever you do. So it ended up being 3 or 4 days a week. If I was playing, it was 4 days a week. I'd lift 3 days if I was playing. Yeah. Yeah, 4 days if I wasn't. Um, so I'd get that in when I needed to, and then, get my food in, check out the pitcher for the day, and then at some point, I like to be, like I said, I like to be spontaneous. I like to go out in the field and, play football with some of the guys and just do all the, the yeehaw stuff before the game.
Hmm.
But I do like to write stuff down at some point, and that can be anything. And that's for me, that's the beauty of like writing. It's like you can write about anything. And for me, once I write that down on the paper, it's like out of my head and it's concrete now. So whether that's the picture and I find something on the picture, or whether it's like a motivation thing, like I will do this today, or I'm feeling like this today, or I'm not feeling like this. I'm feeling terrible. I'm gonna reach out to someone today and tell them I need help. But writing it down helps me out.
Mm.
And then during the game, um, I like to write down my at bats as well because it does the same thing. And especially during the game when like emotions are heightened, writing it down calms my mind down. So,
The main thing that's coming to my mind is just the word self-awareness. Like just being able to see the thought on paper allows you to process it and then use that however you need to. Like if you're not having a good day, how cool is that you can just reach out to someone and understand that you're not necessarily trying to do this alone. You've got a lot of people in your corner who,
Right.
um, can have a big influence on you if you let them, and if you're aware
Right.
of the power that can have. That's really cool. I was hoping to get to that at some point with the journaling your at bats thing, and I didn't know you did it pregame as well. But again, just
Not
such
all
a
the times. I mean, I miss days
yeah,
just like any human being, but
yeah, for sure. Is there any other kind of rituals that you have or superstitions that you like to do? Um, and do you feel they help you, or is it just kind of a something you like to do?
uh I mean, I guess when I go up to the plate, I kind of have a routine. It kind of just locks me in, and that's, spitting in my gloves, clapping my hands, tapping my foot on the ground, tapping the plate and sticking my bat at the pitcher. That's kind of like always stayed the same.
Hmm.
Um, so that's something that just, gets me in the zone, and the pre-bat routines and stuff. But as far as like superstitions and stuff, I actually try to stay away from them because I think personally, I call them stupiderstitions because I think superstitions are, they can just take you down the wrong path because then you do something one day, and because you had a good day, you think you're going to do it the next day. You're like, oh, I'm going to do that same thing today. And then you end up almost like thinking about yesterday when today was there versus like what you did yesterday, like that you did that for a reason.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So it's almost like you're like yesterday, let's say you taped your right wrist. Like, oh, I'm gonna tape my right wrist, and you like had a conviction behind it. And then the next day you're like, oh, I taped my right wrist yesterday. I have to tape my right wrist today. That's not the I mean. Like
Yeah.
that's like that's almost putting a band-aid on it.
100% it is, because at that point your confidence is only as strong the as the superstition,
Right. The
right? Because
superstition.
then yeah, you might go 3 for 3 the first day you tape your wrist, but if you go 0 for 3 the second day, now you don't know where to go. You're left feeling a little bit kind of like your confidence is a little bit crumbled from the day before, because you thought you had the recipe and now you don't. So now you're just
Right.
searching. Now
Right.
you're searching and you don't have anything figured out.
Mhm.
And like ultimately, when we talk about superstitions from a mental skills, mental performance standpoint, if it's not directly correlating to preparing you to actually play the game, then it doesn't really serve any purpose. Now, there is something to be said about peace of mind. If
Right.
you like to tape your wrists every day and it gives you peace of mind and it puts you in a good place,
Right.
that's preparing you to play.
Right.
That's,
And that's something that I do.
yeah.
And I like
But
to take a shower before the games too because I like to feel clean and, you know, like I'm going to the show. So,
yeah, well, yeah, I know you're a big mentality guy, and we've talked about it a little bit, but I want to understand like what mentality means to you, because I know that you love to play with an edge. You point your bat at the pitcher, and you lock eyes with the pitcher, and you're kind of it's a little bit of gamesmanship, but I know it kind of fuels that drive in you.
yeah,
So how do you get yourself there, and what does that actually feel like for you when you're in the zone?
right. Yeah, I mean, for me it's like if I can get into the zone where I'm like straight just competing against that guy, to me that's like the most natural, the most human thing that I can do, like personally, because I love it. Like I love hitting so much that's like the best state that I can get in.
Hmm.
And it doesn't happen all the time. But that's the beauty of the game. Like you have to keep playing even when you're not feeling good. Um, but it also is just a game, and I try to, take pride in that. Like it's just a game, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't mean something. So I like to tell myself that. It's like when I feel like, oh, maybe it's just a game, don't worry about it, Eric. It's like, no, but it's also part of life, and you gotta give life your all, because if you're not, this is how I look at it as an athlete. If I'm not going up to the plate giving my best effort to that pitcher, I'm not only doing myself an injustice, but I'm doing him an injustice as well,
Mm.
because he can get away with not pitching his best to me, and that's not making him better. So if I'm going up there and I crank a 3-run shot off him to right center, hopefully that makes him better, because that's up to him now to decide if he wants to get better or not. So
That's I've heard you say that before, and that absolutely fires me up every time I hear it, because I think we kind of like look at it as a you versus me type thing, and it is in a sense,
right,
but it's also we're all on team humanity, where we're all just trying to make each other better,
right.
and that's really the only way to do it.
Mhm.
And so that kind of leads me perfectly into my next question. I've been
Sweet.
thinking a lot about like the definition of pressure.
Mm,
Um, and you like to get yourself away from the idea of like it being super important, like that it's just a game, but also you do know
yeah.
that it
Oh
is
yeah.
indicative of you as a person. How you present yourself in this platform is indicative of you as a person. So how do you deal with pressure? What does pressure mean to you? um, just give me your thoughts, kind of give me a word vomit on what pressure means to you and
Yeah.
how you perceive it.
Oh man. I mean, there's pressure in the game of baseball all over the place. And I've always liked being part of a team. I've always loved that part about sports, is like, I'm not only doing this for myself. Like I'm fighting for my squad right now.
Hmm.
And that in itself, puts pressure on my back, because then it's like, well, I have to provide for my team type of thing. And, a lot of the time that's my coaches. I don't want to let my coaches down because they're leading me.
Hmm.
And sometimes I put pressure on myself with that, knowing that, like, if I let them down, and that can creep in my thoughts and turn into negative type stuff. Um, so yeah, I mean, it happens, for me, and just because I don't, baseball's just a game doesn't mean that I don't have pressure. Like, of course I have pressure. Like, I've been wanting to do this my whole life. And I mean, like, I think that is the biggest thing for me, though, is like the pressure of wanting to succeed, especially like in the game. And I hate losing.
Hmm. And so where does that balance strike? Like where you hate losing, but also you feel pressure to succeed? Because to me, they can either feed off of each other or they can counterbalance each other. Like if I hate losing enough, then I don't care what anyone thinks. I'm just going to go out and compete. And so then there's not really much pressure.
Right.
But also you can look at it where like I hate losing so much that if I lose, it's going to break me. So
Right.
where do you
Right.
find that balance?
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know. I guess on another level too, I like the pressure. Like, I like the fans being there, and I like,
Mm.
you know, the spotlight kind of being on you for a second, and everyone kind of seeing how it's gonna go. Like, it just kind of puts everybody, the focal point just for that split second is like right there. So personally, I think that's the coolest thing about baseball. It's like, because you're up there and it's right there. Everybody's watching you, and boom. So, like, I guess I kind of thrive off of that, because you're right. Like, if there's no pressure, then I can't get into it sometimes.
Hmm.
And that in itself is can be bad for me. So then I have to almost sometimes like put pressure on myself. But yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one, because pressure is always there, and I don't have the magic answers to, take it away. So I guess it kind of depends on who you are as a person, and, you know, I guess, what you like and what you don't. I mean, if you're not good under pressure, you probably shouldn't be playing, baseball.
Yeah, or you better have some sort of secret potion.
Right. Or or you can practice at it and put yourself in situations, that are pressure filled, I guess.
Yeah, I
Maybe
mean
get
that's where
help
we
you
get
out.
with the sauna and ice and
Right.
all that stuff. That's a way to mimic that. I kind of think of pressure in a different way. And let me know what you think of this, because this is, I think, something that can be a really powerful mindset. But then again, like you said, sometimes if there's not pressure, it's hard to get motivated. But here's how
Mhm.
I think of it. I think of it like you could literally go out and never get a hit again, and your team could lose every single game this entire season, and you'd be just fine, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it goes back to the idea that it's just a game. And so if I went out and I lost every single game and I didn't get a hit, I'd be completely fine. And knowing that, I can sort of turn off that survival part of my brain where, most of baseball is extremely hard because we're taking a non-life and death sport and having a life and death mentality about it. And that's where the
Right.
anxiety and the pressure and stuff starts to get in the way. So I like to look at it as there is absolutely no pressure because I could lose every single game and it would not matter. I could move on with my life
Right.
and it'd be completely fine. Now, knowing that there's no pressure, I can have a lot of confidence and I can
Right.
have a lot of fun because it doesn't
Right.
matter. I
Right.
get to go up to the plate every single time thinking I'm the man and I don't give a crap what happens.
Right.
So I'm just going to have fun with it. Now,
Right.
that's easier said than done. However, there's merit to it if it's effective for you.
Right. And I think that is, detaching yourself from yourself, whatever you do. And that takes practice, that takes a belief system outside of whatever you're doing, I think. Or, something, important in your life that you 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 hold, higher than what you're doing. Um and yeah, that actually has like being on the bench and like kind of like, looking back on my, career because I was on the bench, like, but still being like part of the game, it kind of gave me that like, man, this like I can go out there and just do whatever I want. I don't have to step into that box thinking that I have to step a certain way doing this because that's the way I got a hit last time. Because I've been in that position. I used to, think like that. And that still creeps in every once in a while, like when that, pressure and like fear comes in. Um, but I think you're right. Like that's a really good way to put it. Because if you go up there with like, man, it doesn't matter. Like if I go 0 for 4 this game, I'm still gonna go in that locker room and go back in my bed. Yeah, I might be a little down on myself, but I'll wake up the next morning, hopefully, you know.
Yeah, hopefully. Well, that yet again kind of segues into another thing, which is purpose. What kind of keeps you moving forward when times get tough? You mentioned your faith. So what is it about your faith in particular that keeps you moving forward, and do you have any other sources of purpose that you draw on?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the faith thing's tough to like, it's tough for me to explain, I guess, especially because like I wasn't always like, this the man of faith type of thing. It's just something that I've found, purpose in my life, and it it not only makes sense, but it actually, provides a lot of, love, and it's almost like it's a really good guidebook to how to live your life. And in that book, it doesn't say, Eric, you have to be a baseball player, you know,
Hmm.
and there's a lot more important things in life than being a baseball player. So, ultimately, if something, were to come up, that I need to do that's more important than baseball, then, you know, that'd be nice to know that that's what I got to do.
Hmm.
And, as far as like my career so far, like I feel like it's been a good journey for me in my life. Like it has, brought me closer to like myself and, my faith and that type of stuff. And I've learned a lot of lessons within it. So for me, like it's been super challenging too. Like I've had to make a lot of sacrifices. Um, so like right now it's like for some reason, if I can help people out on this platform, then this is where I need to be. And obviously during these Corona times, like it's everybody's, there's a lot of people struggling and stuff. So I think it's important to, if we can help out in any way, like this is great doing this, hopefully I can help out a high school kid or whoever's, watching,
Mm-hmm.
not me personally, but maybe something that I said will help them make their own decision type of thing. So.
For sure. This is a tough question because I think the beauty of purpose is that it helps you get yourself away from the pressure of the game. But how do you find that it does help you in baseball specifically, having a purpose?
Yeah. Um, yeah, I guess,
If at all.
no, it does help because, before every game I sit down, I kneel down and say a quick little prayer, and whether that be to somebody, at home or, just for the, the results of the game, hopefully I'm not doing that actually, but,
Mm-hmm.
just to keep everybody healthy type of thing. People notice that. And, especially, in a filled stadium, like we do have that platform
Mm-hmm.
to, show what you're made of. And that's why, I like being in that scenario because like I get to show that side of me. And I've had a lot of, fruitful things come about from that. It sparks hope in some people. And I'm like, well, all I did was, go on a knee for 10 seconds. But, people see that. And I think a lot of people too that may not, have that in them, they question it and they might actually have negative, reactions to it. But hopefully the way I play the game and stuff, kind of, leads back into, okay, maybe maybe he is, living out what he's actually practicing type of thing.
That's really cool. Um, I know it's played a factor in a number of different ways for you. Um, you've had to deal with the struggles of not playing. You've had to deal with not playing well at times, and just dealing with so much uncertainty. And through that, I think you've told me you've grown so much as a player and as a man, having that clubhouse presence, and really just giving yourself up to the team. What has that meant to you to give yourself up to the team, and why did you do it? Why have you done that?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think the most important thing in sports is if you can get a team together on the same page, that's gonna that's gonna be a dangerous team. And especially in the minor leagues, that's something that's not priority. And people often lose sight of that.
Hmm.
And it makes me angry. It's like, are you kidding me? Like, you're really gonna feed into what this system is forcing you to do? Like, you're gonna really be selfish because that's what it's kind of telling you to do?
Hmm.
When in reality, like, if you decide to help that your teammate out that's in front of you, you never know if he's gonna help you out in a way that could spark you ahead of that guy. And
Hmm.
of course, that's not like we don't want to play that game of, just doing it to help that. Oh, I'm gonna help that guy out, so then maybe I can get helped out. It's like no, because people can read that and they're baseball players, they're around you know mental type stuff all the time, they can see if you're BSing or not. um but yeah, I think just to give people that like breath of fresh air, like, man, this guy's not just trying to eat at me, like
Hmm.
he's actually rooting for me. Like that's a rare thing in minor league baseball, like having your own teammates. I shouldn't say that in a bad way because I mean everyone has fun, but like the game does get to a lot of people, and I guess staying consistent in that is rare.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, have you found that it derails some careers? The me versus you, me or me against the world mentality.
Yeah, 100%. Because like I said, people aren't stupid, and if you're putting yourself above whoever they are just because of your position, people notice that. Everyone, like, we're all in this together, no matter, like, yeah, your status may be a little higher in your situation then, but that can change like the snap of a finger. So
Sure. Yeah, it's a very heavy subject, I think. Yeah, I
right,
mean, you look at a lot of guys who are searching for purpose, and they've put so much of their identity into
right.
being a baseball player, and it can really bring out the worst in people at times. And it makes it all the more special. And I've got a little bit of goosebumps right now thinking about the fact that it's brought out the best in you. Um, like I just can't believe that happened, and I should believe it happened because I know you so well, but it's just so rare, and it makes me really appreciate everything that you're doing right now. And to have you as a friend is a real blessing. So uh, I
Appreciate
think,
it.
yeah, man, let's take it down a notch. Let's lighten it up a little bit, end it with a few fun ones, and then I've got one more big hitter for you.
Okay.
Okay. So, you're playing in the Dodgers organization, and
Yeah.
and you're playing with a lot of really talented players. Is there any player that you've played with so far that nobody's talking about that you think is going to be a real good player besides Eric Peterson?
So a player that nobody's really talking about that's going to be good
Yeah.
in the Dodgers organization.
Or like, who's the best player you've played with, hands down? You can take it either direction.
Oh man. Oh man. Trying to think. Well, I mean, I played with Gavin Lux, and he had an unbelievable minor league season last year, and that was just incredible. Um, but as far as the minor leagues go, Sam McWilliams. Look that name up. He's got the prettiest swing of all time. He was only in rookie ball last year. Um, he's my pick to be the next Trevor Story type guy.
Mm, that's
Um,
that's high praise.
Yeah, and he was like an outfielder in high school, and they made him into a second baseman. He's just super athletic. He's like 6 foot, can dunk a basketball. He's an athletic dude, and he's got a nice swing. So that's my call. I mean, that's pretty. I don't want to put that pressure on him. I hope he doesn't see this, but
I'm excited. I hope
yeah,
you nailed that one.
yeah.
What is there certain players that you model your game after, or do you have a player comp that you often get compared to?
Um, I don't know. I like to honestly. Recently, I saw a video of Alfonso Soriano and his swing, and like the recent like swing adjustment that I've kind of been doing is it's like kind of similar to him.
What do
So
you mean?
like he's super like arched forward, and
Mm,
like he's got a leg kick and it kind of like stays in the same position. So and he kind of does the same type of load as me. So I guess in that aspect him, but I don't know. I check out so many different swings and I just try to learn from all of them. You know,
hmm.
I think I have a little bit of Donaldson in me too,
For
with a
sure.
big leg kick. So
Any
yeah,
other influences you try to pull from for the young guys out here?
Miguel Cabrera has the smoothest swing. If you can if you can break down his swing and study that one from all angles, you can learn a lot about the bat path and how the swing works, seeing it deep, hitting through the ball, staying opposite with fastballs. pulling the ball and off speed. He's basically like, I mean, he's the picture perfect hitter in terms of like swing, approach, bat path. I mean, he's the
Yeah,
best, I think.
I don't disagree with you.
Yeah.
What is okay? What is your biggest goal for 2020, and how are you going to accomplish it?
Dude, I would love to give you a goal, but I do not have a goal right now with this corona
Tough
thing.
time. It's
Yeah.
a it it's it's a hard question. I hear you. Um, but as you see the future unfolding,
Yeah.
what is something that's kind of keeping you moving forward, and how do you see yourself kind of
Yeah.
getting there?
So like I said, I've been actually been catching bullpens.
Hmm.
So I've kind of used that time to maybe, implement that tool a little bit. And maybe that gets me back in the lineup at some point. That's kind of what I'm always trying to do is just fight to get into that lineup. And I mean, I'm at the point where it's kind of like make or break. So this season, was super important, and who knows what's going to happen. So that's, I think, just honing in on, maybe like that new skill for now is kind of, it's been fun to do.
You're a natural athlete. I'd imagine you're picking it up pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's fun.
Nice.
Yeah, it's fun.
Well, I mean I don't know what the future will hold, but I think you've given it a heck of a run, and I sure hope it's not over. I don't think it needs to be for you, but I have no doubt that you'll find your way either way, and you're gonna make the world a better place, which is I think the ultimate compliment. So
Man, that's
one
too
last
much.
question here. Yeah, one last question here from an athlete that I work with. I told him I was going to come on here with you tonight. Um, and he wants to know, how hard do you have to work?
How hard do you
It's
have
a
to work?
it's a pretty it's a pretty broad question, but when you look at being a minor league baseball player, I mean,
Yeah.
is it easy? Is it hard? Is it like the hardest thing you've ever done? Like, just what
Yeah.
does it take? What does it take?
Well, I've always I learned from, Jason Hoppy after workouts would always stay after and do a little bit extra. Max Waltich would always stay after and do a little bit extra. Like Mike Andrews, same thing, do a little bit extra. And, as I started doing that, because I didn't really do that. Like I would always kind of do the workouts and stuff like in high school and, you know, but then, as I wanted to see results and stuff in baseball, I realized like I got to take this into my own hands. I got to do this myself. And, seeing those guys put in work after, I didn't have any excuse not to do it. So I started doing that. And so I was, initially I was following those guys. So I was
Mhm.
working harder because I was following those guys that were, ahead of me and that were leaders. And then, as in college, in my situation, I kind of, had a good little career. And once I got into that leadership role, plus I was trying to, keep playing after college, you realize you have to work even harder because I'm still trying to, you know, attain that goal. Plus, I can't be speaking anything out of my mouth that I'm not doing, as a leader.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's an amount of hard work you have to do. I just know that there's nobody that can tell you how hard that you have to work. Like you have to work harder than yourself yesterday, type of thing. And over time, that hard work, if you have goals in mind, and if you have um like if you have an idea of what you want to get out of that work, the fruits will come of it, whether that be in what you wanted, or you might learn something along that path that you didn't think that you were going to learn. And that's also the beauty about sports too. It's like, yeah, you might be playing sports right now if you're in high school or college or even pro, but if you, it gives you a platform to work hard, to fail, to succeed. And I'm guessing, I haven't been outside in the real world yet, but I'm guessing those principles, if you give it your all, they will help you out later down the road. And of course, that is the cliche thing that I'm given. But I mean, I see it, it's so true, because once you get into that hard work mode and you're doing it not because somebody else told you, but you're doing it because you want to, attain something or
Hmm.
achieve something, like there's, you're going to have to work hard because you're your only judge.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, at that point, a lot of the responsibility is it's on you.
Right. And if you're afraid of hard work, start working hard, you know?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're afraid of hard work, it's probably for a reason, right?
Right.
There's probably something that's kind of holding you back. But okay, now we're kind of coming to my favorite question here.
Yep.
It's something. It's kind of my signature one big question that I want to leave each of my guests with. I don't know if you. I don't think you were on for the first two episodes, so I'll share the story behind this question again. Um, just with my heart surgeries and everything that's gone on in my life, being raised by a single mother and having just a handful of things that have made me question what this is all really about. I've had those multiple times going into the operating room for open heart surgery where
Mm.
you question whether you're going to come back. You try to trust the doctors, but you really don't know. Um, and it's a very scary time, and it makes you understand that even more that life is fragile and life is short and all that cliche stuff. um, and so I've kind of put myself on this path of understanding what is the recipe for a fulfilling life. And so I'm actually writing a book on that topic right now. And so my question for you is, what
What
do
was
you
that last
think?
part? Sorry, I didn't, you cut out.
Oh no, that's okay. I was just mentioning that I'm writing a book on the subject right
Oh,
now,
wow.
which is very exciting, and I'm excited to get things rolling here. Hopefully, I'm looking to have a first draft done by the end of the month here. It's taken a lot of work organizing and
What?
getting everything out, but it will be a long process. So anyhow, um, you know that brings me to the big question that I have for you. What do you think is the recipe for a fulfilling life?
Man, that is such a hard question. Of course of course you're writing about this. Um, Man, what's the recipe for a fulfilling life?
Or just components of a fulfilling life? I think
Yeah,
if you can break it down to the components, the recipe
man.
starts to come together. What is it? What When you look at
Uh,
people who have fulfilling lives, what do they do?
I think most importantly, as cheesy as it sounds, I think striving towards love in all things
Mm,
is a big one. Um, yeah, and that one's hard because love can be tough. Um, Man, I guess, for me, it's like having a faith, um, knowing that, you're loved, going back to love, um, doing things the right way, and, even if it's uncomfortable, doing things the right way. Because I feel like everybody kind of knows, like, I mean, I shouldn't be speaking for everybody, but I feel like a lot of people know, like, the right thing to do.
hmm.
And that's an important thing to do, is do things the right way. And I guess just enjoy what you're doing.
That's That's the recipe, the unedited recipe, you think, for a fulfilling life?
Yeah.
I know there's more to
Get
that, but
outside. Get outside in nature. Watch some Kyle videos.
I think a sense of humor is in there somewhere.
Yeah. Definitely have a sense of humor.
Yeah, man, it's funny. I've been putting together the kind of like outline for how it's supposed to look, and it's
I should ask my
originally I was
grandma that.
there. You go.
I need to ask some older people that question. Because I don't have the answers yet. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, it's a very loaded question, especially for a person in their 20s. But
Yeah.
uh, that it's not to say that you have to be older to be wiser, though. There's a
Right.
lot of life lessons in there along the way, especially if you've learned from your less from your mistakes and learned from observing other people, just as you've done a lot of observing in your day. So
Right.
um, it's a question that I think we'll continue to search for the answer as we get older. But the reason I ask it is I think you guys as guests give me so much of your time and so much of your information. I also want to leave my guests with something,
Yeah.
and what better than I think kind of the ultimate mission that we're all on, which is to live a very fulfilling life. And so to ponder that question is to
Yeah.
entertain it and search what that might be for yourself. So um, I'd imagine we'll be having more conversations about this off the record,
Yes.
and which I'm very excited for. Um, with that, do you have anything else that you thinking about Eric Peterson as a person and what's made you a professional baseball player and who you are today? What have we left out? Have we left out anything important?
Just my friends that keep me going, like you, Mr. Hanson. You guys are my friends and family, you know. I mean, this has been great having just listening to that pumped me up. Like, I mean, I know like about your heart surgery and stuff, but the fact that it's led you to this to you writing a book, like what? That's sick. Because I like writing and that's
Hmm.
sweet. Yeah, I wouldn't be where I'm at if it weren't for the support from my friends and family. So there's zero chance I would, even without my teammates either. So yeah, hopefully, something's gonna come out of this for everybody,
Yeah.
this quarantine thing. So
Well, I think, I mean, I don't know if this correlates, but I think you and I are both like pretty deep thinkers, and sometimes it's really hard to articulate your thoughts out
yeah,
loud. And I it's ironic because I kind of speak for a living. Like that's pretty much what I do as a job, and
yeah,
I don't consider myself very good at it. And so I feel that one way that I can share what I have with the world is through a book. To whether it's going to be any good remains to be seen. We'll see, but I do think that I'm going to put everything I have into it, and it'll be at the very least worth entertaining. So I'm excited for it, and I'm excited just to keep learning from people like you, and growing those friendships, growing the love that we have for each other as friends, and what a great opportunity for
yep,
all of us.
for sure.
All right, I think it's time for a farewell, Petey. You're the man. Thank you so much for coming on. I look at you just not only as a friend, but as kind of a role model. And I hate to get cheesy, but um, you know, having a role model, I think, is a great recipe for a friend. So um, I appreciate what you're doing and the example you're setting for kids, and you're giving so much back to the game that not many people are able to give. So I'm looking forward to your future, and I'm looking forward to us getting together real soon.
Let's do it, man. Let's have a quarantine beer together, or after post
Yeah.
quarantine.
Hey, June 1st, the restaurants and whatnot are opening back up. So
Oh, let's go.
yeah. All right. I'll say goodbye to you, and I'm just going to throw in a quick plug for where the people can find the episode and who's coming on next. So,
Okay.
everyone, that's Eric Peterson. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I know I had a ton of fun listening. This episode will be posted on the Mindstrong Project website and YouTube channel sometime in the next day or two. Please feel free to share it and pass it along to anyone who you think could benefit from hearing this type of conversation. Episode 4, the next episode, will be happening on Thursday, again at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. The guest will be another good friend of both Eric and mine, Brody Rodnan, who is a left-handed pitcher in the Toronto Blue Jays organization. He was a 13th round draft pick a couple of years ago after putting up some pretty insane numbers at Minnesota State. He has an incredible story of his own, and I can't wait for us to talk about his journey so far. So tune in Thursday for that. All right. Thank you all for coming on, and that is episode 3 of The Ringer. Hope you guys have a good night.
Peace.
See you, Petey.